Hey everyone, so I'm going to be making a little bit of a F1 Manager 2022 career mode video. This is going to be the first one. I'm going to be taking over Ferrari. Also going to be talking about F1, so maybe we'll do this as like a weekly little thing as the season gets going. Do one race and make a video kind of talking about the F1 world, any news, and also kind of do a race. So decided to take over Ferrari because I don't really want the challenge, nor do I have the time to kind of build up a team in the middle of the pack like a McLaren or an Alpine to a championship contender. I've played this game before, logged a lot of hours in the game. One of the things I've learned is to, it takes a couple years. I did one with McLaren um, to get to get and win the constructors. It was a lot of work. So I'm gonna change to my name. Then I'm going to go to disable because I've played this a bunch. Confirm. Alright, so for those who have not seen the menu, you got the home page, kind of shows you everything. You got the inbox, welcome to the team, the calendar, what circuits, race, cars, drivers, Charles Leclerc, Carlos Sainz, Antonio Giovinazzi. I didn't know Carlos was 27. Damn. Okay. So then the staff. Here, head of aerodynamics, really good. Facilities, the board, finances, everything. So the first thing I'm going to do is going to get to car parts development, new project, design. We're going to do new front wing, do 1, and we will do 14. Do E to see what your design focus, so that's cool. We will do 5 and confirm. Cool. And we're going to do one more for the rear wing. We're going to do 1 of the hours. And you only get a similar, a limited amount of hours in the ATR testing period. You see we have 56 days left. So, yeah, we'll do 12. Design focus. We'll leave it on balance. Development settings. We'll do 5 again because we can only do 2 at a time. And approach, excuse me, is normal. If you want to rush it, you can if you're behind. So that's cool. But normal approach is good for us. We're in a good spot. So we can go back here. Next thing I want to do is facilities. So our CFD simulator is kind of low, so we'll upgrade that. Staff facilities is fine. Our weather center is low. And our helipad is low, so we'll upgrade both of those. So now it's really just continuing to the first race. So inbox, sponsorship application, kickoff party, we'll approve a party, boost some morale. Helipad's upgraded. Post design testing. See, we're pretty much first or third, so that's cool. I mean, we don't visit the helipad, it just takes you there, so it doesn't really do much. So yeah, race weekends in 4 days. So we're at the race weekend, race prep, performance targets, reach Q3. Yeah, like I'm not really worried about any of that stuff. Circuit info, expected strategies is one you gotta look out for. The soft, medium, soft is probably what I'm gonna use for both these. It is good to kind of mix it up, but we can go to the racer weekend at the Bahrain Grand Prix. So yeah, let's see, when is the Bahrain Grand Prix? It's got to be coming up in February here, right? So Bahrain Grand Prix 2023. It is Friday, March 3rd, so it's in March. So we're just over a month away from the start of the 2023 F1 season. Super excited to get back out there. So I'm going to simulate the qualifying. I really couldn't care less about practice. I'm going to simulate qualifying too because we have Ferraris, we should be in P1 through 5. The sim engine should do it. If I was in like a McLaren or an Alpine, definitely would be doing qualifying, but it's just not worth the time here. And plus the fact that we're going to go through the whole race itself is going to take about an hour at 2 times speed. So P2, P4 is fine. We're mixed with the Red Bulls. We're close to getting P1 with Charles. The McLaren guys struggled. The GOAT at the back. Yeah, neither McLaren making the P3 is surprising. Both Alfa Romero is working its way to P3. It's pretty cool, but good for them, I guess. They always do well in this simulation. I don't understand it. So we will do soft medium for him. Yeah, we'll just do the same strategy. It's a little bit of a pain in the butt to manage, but, you know, get on the faster tires. You know, we'll see how it goes. Boom, boom, boom. And we are lights out, and away we go here at the Bahrain Grand Prix. So the first thing I like to do is just put on overtake. As you can see, Charles already lost a position. Don't love that. But he's back up to P2. I like having overtake on to start, just because, you know, it's the closest you're going to be to someone, as Valtteri Bottas overtook Carlos. So now we're P2 and P5. Great. But it's the closest you're going to be, so might as well try and take advantage of it. You know, as we know, if you watch F1, most overtakes happen at the start of the race. So, you know, we're good to go there. Apologies if I'm drinking some water, you know, throughout the video. It gets dry talking. But, yeah, super excited to see. So we're back to P1 with Charles. I don't expect that to continue. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to try and go and deploy and try and get a second lead on Max, so Max isn't in our DRS, so maybe we have a shot. So we'll see. But yeah, get out of that 1 second so Max isn't in DRS range, and maybe we can kind of grow a lead with Charles if Max doesn't have DRS and can't catch up. So let's go over to Carlos. It looked like he was about to overtake Valtteri, but now he's kind of dropped back. But yeah, I'm just super excited for the 2023 F1 season to get started. I'm going to be going through some of my predictions here while I'm playing this game. Hopefully we can get P1, P2. So we'll go to neutral. He's over a second, so that's cool because he's out of Max isn't in DRS range, so that's good. But yeah, so going to go through kind of my predictions of who I think is going to win the constructors, who I think is going to win the drivers, as Carlos overtakes Valtteri Bottas right there, and just kind of talk about the kind of major storylines that wrapped up last year going into this year. Can I do this little podcast format while giving you guys some gameplay here, talking about F1. So the first thing, looking at the constructors, I guess I'll go from kind of back to front in terms of who I think is going to finish 10th through 1. So starting off at 10, I mean, it's probably going to be Williams unless Logan Sargent comes in and is amazing. Now, saying a lot, you know, I think Logan Sargent is definitely going to be better than Nicholas Latifi. Kind of hard not to be, and he was kind of only there because his daddy paid for him to be there. So it's definitely going to be a better season for Williams, but I just don't think they have the resources. You know, they just named a team principal. They just seem to be kind of the back of the pace, back of the grid, you know, every single year. So I'm definitely going to say Williams is going to come in 10th. A sneaky team who is doing well in this race. They're both in the points. Who I actually think is really going to struggle this season is Alfa Romeo. I just think they're in such a weird place in terms of their finances. They have that Audi, with Sauber coming in, and it just seems like they're in just a weird place. And I don't think they're going to be really competitive until 2024, 2025 comes along, and that's when they're going to have a real shot at being competitive. But I think they're kind of in this limbo place. I think Valtteri's kind of is what he is. He's a serviceable driver. You put him on an elite car, he's going to give you good results. You put him in a bad car, he's not really going to outperform that bad car. Let's see what that. It's probably just a warning for something. That yellow flag. So Schumacher locked up. Checo and Max are gaining on Charles, getting a little DRS train with each other, which isn't great. I'm not too worried. We still got a long way to go in this race, so yeah. One of the things that I'm most interested to see, though, I'm not the biggest Zhou Guan Yu fan. I think he had an okay rookie year, but I don't think he did anything spectacular or showed why he, is going to be anything other than a serviceable driver. So we'll see. I'm just not super high on Alfa Romeo this year. So that's kind of who I have coming in ninth. Coming in eighth, I actually think it's going to be AlphaTauri. I think Nick DeVries is going to have some good races. I think he's going to do well. I just think it's so tough to be a feeder team like AlphaTauri is for Red Bull. And I don't know why they have them. I understand there's only so many teams with money, and I understand the logistics of it, but let's be honest, AlphaTauri is never going to compete for, not even going to try and compete for constructors while they're still owned by Red Bull, because Red Bull is the primary team. The best they're going to do is finish in fourth. I know Pierre Gasly won a race. Cool. But I just think they're gonna struggle. And I just think they're going to finish in eighth in the constructors this year. So that kind of brings us to kind of the middle of the table. I think Haas is going to come in seventh in the constructors. Nothing against Haas. I just think they've kind of taken the direction with bringing back Nico Hulkenberg, Kevin Magnussen, where it's like, okay, we're just going to go with vets who are going to get the job done. They're going to be in the points for some races. They're going to be consistent in qualifying with where the car should be. And they're going to put us in the best position to kind of steady the ship. Which, hey, that year while they had Mick Schumacher and Nikita Mazepin, Mazepin especially, they were horrible. And they were dead last. And it was a horrible decision. Letting Mick go, the way it was handled by Gunter Steiner probably wasn't the best. However, I just think they're going to be solid, kind of like how Kevin was this year. I think Nico's going to be solid. I don't expect him to just come out of nowhere and put up some crazy results. Daniel Ricciardo was consistently beating him when they were in the same Renault car, so I don't think he's a top-of-the-line driver, but he's serviceable. He's a vet. He knows what he's going to do. He's going to get in there. He's going to do his job. However, I just think, like I kind of said, it's just going to be meh. You're going to look up, Haas is going to be seventh, and they're going to be like, that's a good year for Haas, but they have the potential to do more, and they're kind of just having these two guys who are not early on in their career just in a weird place, doing their thing. So that's super cool, but good for them. Seventh in the constructors is probably the best they can do. I don't really see them challenging for top 5, top 6. They might get top 6, but I really think seventh is kind of the sweet spot. So that goes on to who I think is going to come in sixth. So Who do I think is going to come in 6th? That's going to be Aston Martin. I actually think Aston Martin's going to have a really good year. Obviously, Lance Stroll is there because of his dad and his dad owning the team and his dad, basically giving him a seat. And I do think there will be drama between him and Fernando Alonso because there's always drama between Fernando Alonso and whoever he is driving with. So we'll definitely see about that. However, I think I definitely think that they are going to do a good job. I think that car was getting better later on in the year. Seb was pulling some results. They had a really good showing at Austin. Lance ended up crashing out. But I think they got the ability to kind of compete with these top teams. Not on a consistent basis, but definitely pull maybe a few top 5 finishes at the odd race and definitely be in the points for a decent amount of races. So I definitely think they're gonna be decently ahead of Haas come the end of 2023, and after that, I guess the next team I see finishing high up is gonna be, or the team I see finishing in 5th. Apologies for kind of misspeaking here. I'm trying to pay attention to the game plan as the gameplay as we're getting closer to the pit windows here for both these cars. So the next team that I think is going to come in 5th for a second straight year is McLaren. That's a really disappointing result for McLaren. They got 2 young drivers. I mean, I know Lando has a lot of experience for his age compared to a lot of drivers at his age and at their point in their career, but I think they're going to be significantly behind Alpine. I think they do this great marketing strategy, but losing kind of their team principal late on in the process. I just think they're really going to struggle. I just think it's going to be a really disappointing year for McLaren. I think Oscar Piastri is going to do fine. I just think their car the last few years, since they had that Constructors 3 finish with Carlos and Lando, it's been slipping. And maybe it was just because Daniel Ricciardo wasn't getting the most out of it, but he still won a race. He still won at Monza. I know there's some crashes or whatever, but he still won. And you look at it this year, Lando was the only one outside of the top 3 teams to get a podium, in 2022. I just think they're going to really struggle. I'm not. I think they got a long way to go. So I guess we'll see. But yeah, I'm not a big fan of where they're headed. So that's kind of my 5. So now we're in the pit window. I think I'm going to try and wait and go for the overcut and try and stay out as long as possible. It looks like Carlos's tire dag's a little bit more, not a lot, but the plan is to go in after Max and Checo, because that's our main competition right now, and go for the overcut on them. So I'm just going to pay attention to that. Like I said, McLaren 5th in the Constructors this year. I think it's going to be a disappointing season for McLaren. And I think they need some changes. I think they kind of need a new direction. I think they maybe need to get rid of Zach Brown. I just think there's a lot wrong with McLaren at the moment, and I just think they're really going to struggle this year. I'm just not super high on McLaren. I know Daniel Ricciardo struggled in that car, and it really wasn't set up for him. But then he had, Mexico, where he was just overtaking people for fun when the car was feeling good and the strategy was right. So I really don't know. I don't know if... Okay, Carlos complaining about tire grip. So, yeah, we're going to just wait and see. Hopefully one of them pits. Now Charles is complaining about no grip.
Can we try something with the tires?
Alright, we're going to give you one more lap after this one. Hopefully they pit. One of them pits, so that should help. We'll go to the medium. And then we'll have to wait one more lap for Charles here. Like you said, the goal is to get P1, P2. As long as we get a win and top 3 with the other one, I'm happy with that. So yeah, I'm not super high on McLaren this year. I think they're really going to struggle. Then looking forward to top 4. 4th place, obviously, I think Alpine. I think Pierre Gasly is going to do a decent job there. I think he's going to come in. I think he's going to be a little more consistent than Fernando Alonso. It seemed like Fernando could never finish a race, and Esteban always did. And I know Fernando got some good results. But
Yeah, the pit lane. Okay, understood.
But I think they're gonna struggle. I think they're gonna have a good year. I mean, struggle to compete with the top 3 teams is what I mean when I say I think they're gonna struggle. But overall, I just think they got a ways to go before they're super competitive. Giving people a lot of trouble going forward. So that's kind of where I'm at with Alpine. Esteban's Esteban. He's going to be consistent. I think Pierre's going to be a little more consistent than Fernando was. Yeah, I mean, that's really I'm at with Alpine. So that kind of gives us to the big 3. Where do I think Ferrari, Mercedes, and Red Bull are going to finish in the constructors? As we got Charles coming in the pit here. Hopefully we come out ahead of Checo. It will be close. We're behind Checo. Great. That's unfortunate. What kind of tire? I mean, his tire drag is more, so hopefully we can really go for an overcut here, and hopefully we're conservative with our tire approach with these two, and really push it later on to try and pick up some seconds on Red Bull here. But that kind of brings me to top 3 as we're kind of in this middle stretch here in this race, in the gameplay itself. I think 3rd is going to be Ferrari. I just don't think they're going to be consistent with Red Bull and with Mercedes. I think Carlos just isn't a consistent enough driver on the grid. Nothing against Carlos. He's super talented. You just look at it. Japan, America, like anytime something goes wrong with the Ferrari car, especially late in the year, and it seemed like it was Carlos, he just had so many DNFs, and it's just weird. Like you look at America, you look at the contact he had with the Mercedes, and he was done. Like right away, he was done. And meanwhile, you look at the Alonso Stroll crash, and Alonso was able to come back and race. It's just weird. It just seems like I just don't think the changes that Ferrari wants to have is going to happen this year. So that's super interesting. But yeah, I just think, they made a lot of changes, new team principal. We'll see. I just think they're just going to not be consistent enough. They're going to have too many DNFs and finish behind Red Bull and Mercedes. So that kind of leaves us with the final 2. On the constructor side, I'll get into the drivers in a little bit later, where I think they're going to finish overall and what my prediction is. But I really think that Mercedes is going to have a bounce back year. They kind of were embarrassed by Red Bull this year, and even embarrassed by Ferrari a little bit. And I just think they're ready. You saw later in the year, you saw them get better. I think just another year with George on the team, I think, is only going to help them. So I really think that Mercedes is going to wind up coming and winning the constructors over Red Bull. I think Checo is going to have a similar year, but I don't think he's going to have as successful as a year and win as many races. I think because Lewis and George Russell are going to be in more competitive cars, and I think Charles is going to push for some victories there. And then also, I think I really think that I just kind of believe in the team dynamic and the working together of George Russell and Lewis Hamilton more than I believe in the dynamic of uh, in the dynamic of Red Bull. I think there was drama with Checo and Max later on in the year with Brazil and Max not wanting to give up the spot and how that unfolded, and Max's mom making comments alleging Checo with relationship issues and all that. And the fact that Daniel Ricciardo is the reserve driver for Red Bull, and he's going to be doing a lot of media stuff, and he's going to be out there. And I'm a big Daniel Ricciardo fan. He's going to be making content for Red Bull. People are going to see him, and people are going to want him and want him to be in that seat. And I definitely think that that's something that could potentially happen. So in 2024, not in 2023, but I think that's going to be looming over Checo. It's tough for Checo to play second fiddle to Max as he's done consistently. I know he's got 2 years left on his contract, but I wouldn't be surprised if this is Checo's last year Red Bull and something's just not right and they struggle and they finish behind Mercedes. And I just think Mercedes had real car development problems last year, and I think Mercedes is going to do a much, much better job of that this year. And I'm just super excited to see where Mercedes is, where Mercedes is going, and everything that kind of goes along with that. But I just think they're going to be good. Like, I just think they're going to be real good this year. They're going to be on a mission this year. So, yeah, that's kind of my prediction. So just to kind of recap it all, in 10th, I have Williams. In 9th, I have Alfa Romeo. In 8th, I have AlphaTauri. In 7th, I have Haas. In 6th, I have Aston Martin. In 5th, I have McLaren. In 4th, I have Alpine. 3rd, Ferrari. 2nd, Red Bull. And winning the Constructors into 2023 is going to be... Let me just see what okay, it's just a yellow flag. Sorry, I got distracted by the gameplay there. But winning the Constructors in 2023, I believe, is going to be Mercedes. So next, I'm going to go through the grid. I'm just going to double check I'm not forgetting anyone as I go through it. So apologies. I know there's 4 rookies this year. So I got it pulled up on my other screen here. So we're gonna go to who I think is gonna come last. Well, if we're going off of my predictions, and I think Williams is gonna come last, I just think Logan Sargent's gonna struggle. I think he's gonna be better than Latifi. I mean, that bar is low. I just don't think they have the resources to even be remotely competitive with teams in the middle. So I think Logan Sargent is probably going to finish last place on the grid this year, which is disappointing because it's cool that there's an American on the grid again, especially with the rise of popularity in F1 in America with Drive to Survive. I mean, that's how I got into F1, and now I love it. I'm a huge fan. So I really think Logan Sargent is gonna struggle. He's gonna be better than Latifi. He's gonna get 2 years in that seat, I believe. But yeah, he wasn't like a top driver in F2 last year. It's not like he won F2. They're struggling or they were waiting to see if he would finish high enough to get enough super license points to race in F1. So I think Sargent is going to struggle. And like I said, with the team coming in ninth, and I think it's going to be Alfa Romeo, I think Joe's going to really struggle this year. I think Joe's a nice guy. I just don't think he's a super talented driver. I think this is it's hard for drivers who are not super talented, who are just kind of okay. So we get the new fastest lap with Charles Leclerc, who are just kind of okay. And we're seeing the mediums in the gameplay here kind of catch up on the Red Bulls, and our tire deck is probably better than them. So we should be kind of getting close to overtake them the next few laps. But I'm going to push super hard and try for an overcut and spend the least amount of times on trying to get these mediums to last as long as possible. Anyways, like I said, I think Joe is going to come in 19th place. Nothing against Joe. I just think Alfa Romeo is really going to have a tough year. I think Valtteri is going to be okay and pull off some good qualifying sessions. And you saw he was consistently ahead of Joe later on in qualifying with the Alfa Romeo. So I think Joe Guanyu is going to finish in 19th place. So that's kind of my bottom two. In 18th place, I think it's going to be Alex Albon. I just think Williams is not a competitive car. We've seen him get good results out of the Williams last year, and I think Albon's a good driver, but he's just it's just tough. It's just tough. A lot of these drivers are just kind of put in cars that don't necessarily maximize, or just kind of okay cars, or not good enough cars, and they're good drivers, and they push them, but it's just nothing special about them. You reach your limit, so that's why I think Alex Albon's going to finish in 18th place in the drivers' race this year. In 17th, I actually think it's going to be Yuki Tsunoda with AlphaTauri. I think Yuki's really going to struggle. I don't know how him and Nick DeVries are going to get along. I think DeVries is going to be pushed more by AlphaTauri than Yuki because his friendship with Max. He's a little older. He's kind of the bigger name at the moment than Yuki. He's a little more marketable. He just speaks better English. I know how bad that may sound, but it does matter. Like, there's a reason why Red Bull wanted Daniel Ricciardo to be their reserve driver this year. It's because you can make YouTube videos and content with Daniel Ricciardo, and people will watch them and like them because he's that entertaining of a guy. So, super excited to kind of see what's next for Daniel Ricciardo, like I said earlier. But I just think Yuki's going to struggle. I think it's going to be his last year on the grid. I think someone else is going to come in next year, or someone else is going to come back next year and kind of replace him in that second AlphaTauri seat. I'm sure Red Bull has some people in their academy that they're looking at who, if one of them has a good year, they'll be ready to give them that AlphaTauri seat in 2024. So definitely think they're going to struggle. They're going to struggle. I said they were going to finish in 8th in the constructors, and I think Yuki's going to struggle the most. So that gets us to 16th place in the drivers. I think in 16th place, I think it's going to be, it's kind of take your pick here, but just because I think Alfa Romeo is going to struggle and they're in just a bad place, I think it's going to be Valtteri. I wouldn't be surprised if this is Valtteri's last year on the grid. It's just tough to be on a bad team, and I just think Alfa Romeo is not a good team. I mean, he's doing well in this gameplay right here, but yeah, I just don't think Alfa Romeo is a very good team this year. They're in a weird spot with Audi coming in a few years, and I just don't think they're going to be super competitive. I don't think they're going to be super competitive this year, and that's kind of why I think Valtteri is going to struggle. And I think, he's going to come in 16th place. And then to follow it up, I think Nico Hulkenberg is going to come P15. I think the Haas car is going to be good. I think Nico is Nico. He's going to do a good job, but he's not going to do a great job. He'll get into the points a handful of times this year and kind of, maybe have a good finish or two or a good qualifying session or two, but I don't think he's going to, necessarily do anything super elite to kind of put himself ahead. So interesting as Carlos overtakes Leclerc. It seemed like Leclerc kind of got bottled up there with the Valtteri, but now I guess we can have a little DRS train with the two Ferraris. So hopefully that helps us. Like I said, the key is going to be just to overcut, pushing it as we get close here. But yeah, I think Nico's going to do a fine job. He's going to finish P15. He'll do okay. It's just, he is what he is. There's not really an excitement for Haas this year with Kevin and Nico. It's just kind of like, you know what you're going to get. So P14, this year in the drivers, I think it's going to be Nick DeVries. I think he's going to have some good showings. I still think AlphaTauri is going to struggle. It's tough being a feeder team for a big team, and I just don't think they get the resources to be super competitive this year or any year that they're on the grid and Red Bull's on the grid. It's not super fair, but I think Nick DeVries is probably going to have a race or two where he's close to the top 5, maybe have some good qualifying, get into Q3 a decent amount of weekends, and really, have some good showings and do good, but still I think P14 sounds about right for him. So then P13, I think it's going to be Kevin Magnussen. Kind of similar to Nico. I just think he's got a little more familiarity with the car. We saw him get pole in Brazil, which was a super cool moment with that craziness in 2022. Kevin's a good guy. And, yeah, I think he's going to do a good job. I don't think he's going to do a great job, but I think he's going to do a good job, and I think he'll get into P13 this year, which is respectable. And I'm also kind of doing the math in my head to make sure it lines up before I see the drivers and the constructors and everything. And I could see kind of there being some discrepancies here. So I'm actually going to go on to attack here as we've entered the pit window. And we're going to go for the overcut here on this gameplay. So, one thing I do think could happen is Lance Stroll just struggles. I like Lance Stroll. I think he's good enough to be on the grid, despite him just being on the grid because of his dad. But I think he's legitimately a decent enough driver where he deserves to be on the grid, unlike Latifi. So, yeah, Lance Stroll is kind of my pick to finish P12. I just think Aston Martin's their car was kind of coming along late in the year. I think they got the resources and the money to kind of have a good run, and I just think they're just kind of a weird team, but I think they're going to have better results this year than they did in 2023, and that's mainly because I think AlphaTauri and Alfa Romeo are going to have a major step back. So that's kind of where I have them. And then I think Fernando's going to come in and he's going to do a really good job. So then next up in P11, I think is going to be Oscar Piastri. I think Oscar is going to have his ups and downs his rookie year. I don't think the McLaren car is super competitive, so I think he's going to struggle with that a little bit. But yeah, I think, I think that's kind of where I'm at with McLaren as a whole. I think this is going to be a disappointing year. I think 11th is going to be kind of disappointing for Oscar, but we'll be looking back and it's like, well, it's not his fault. the car wasn't that great. He did the best he could. He did okay for a rookie. They were kind of more designing the car for Lando's likes. And yeah, I just think they're gonna have a rough year. McLaren's gonna have a rough year, so I think he's gonna finish P11. In P10, I think it's gonna be Fernando Alonso. I think Fernando's gonna do a really good job with his car.
Yeah,
Okay.
every I don't know why.
Because I'm making you push it. We'll go back to standard, but
What do we do? Yeah, I lost the massive amount of it.
we're gonna try and focus here. So, anyways, I'll finish the top 10 after I get through this pitch. You're staying out for one more lap. That's what you're doing. So,
We should slow down. Copy.
I just need one more lap from these guys, and we should be in good shape.
And DRS is disabled. DRS disabled. All good.
Okay. Make sure we get that guy. And then Charles is going to be here. But where was I? Oh, yeah. I think Fernando's going to finish 10. I think he's going to have some great results. I think he's going to have some DNS. Kind of similar to Alpine. I think the car's not going to be as good. He'll push it to Q3 a decent amount of times, but I think about 10th seems about right. In Aston Martin, I think that's a good year for Aston Martin. So I think that's something that they can kind of take home and be happy about. So next, P9, I think is going to be Pierre Gasly with his first year in Alpine. I think Pierre's a good driver. I don't think he's a great driver. I don't see him finishing ahead of Esteban in his first year with the team. I think he's going to do a good job. I think their car is going to be good. I think their car is going to be competitive. Let's see where Carlos comes out. It's behind Max and behind Checo by a decent amount, but hopefully the tire dag later on will give us an advantage. We will see. We will see. He's got a huge lead over Valtteri, so I'm actually going to put him in harvest here and kind of get that ERS up so when we're in a more optimal window later on to kind of make a push. I'm also going to do the same for Charles, as I expect him to kind of come out in between Carlos and Valtteri here. So yeah, I mean, I think Pierre's going to finish P8. I think or P9. I think it's going to be a good year for Pierre, but I don't think it's going to be a great year for Pierre. And I think they're going to do a good job, but I don't think they're really going to push any of the top three teams. I think they're going to be kind of that team that's solidly in fourth, and they're going to do a decent job. So that's why P8, I think it's going to be Esteban Ocon. I think Esteban Ocon has the potential to have a few good races. I think McLaren's going to tailor the car to Lando, tailor their strategies to Lando like they did this year, and kind of give Lando every opportunity in the book to kind of be super successful and put together some amazing races. So I think Lando's gonna have a good year, a little bit better than Esteban, and I think Lando is gonna come in 7th again. But like I said, I think McLaren's gonna come below Alpine in the constructors because Oscar is gonna finish P11. He's gonna struggle. I think it's gonna be close. I think Lando's just gonna have a very similar year to where he was in 2022, where he was just kind of like the best of the rest. He was 7th. He wasn't competing with the top three teams, but he was the best outside of the top 3 teams, and I kind of see that trend continuing in 2023 with Lando and with him in the McLaren. So now let's get to the top 6, and this is where it gets spicy because obviously it's the top 3 teams. It's the 3 teams that have a real shot at a constructors. Top 3, who I think is coming in 6th, I think it's going to be this guy, Carlos Sainz. The guy we're watching now. I just think he's going to have he's just too inconsistent. He just will have too many DNFs, and it will bite him, and he will struggle. So I think he's gonna be a little inconsistent, and I think it's gonna hurt him, and I think he's gonna kind of be the worst of the best and finish in P6. He might win a Grand Prix or 2. He's talented enough to do that. The Ferrari's a good enough car to do that. I just think consistently over a season he's gonna struggle. He's gonna have too many DNFs. So who do I think is gonna come in 5th? I think it's gonna be Checo. I think Checo's gonna have a tough year. I kind of touched on it earlier, that drama with Max, Daniel Ricciardo kind of looming over him, and seeing where Daniel Ricciardo is. I think it's going to be a tough year for Checo. For Red Bull a little bit, I think they're going to... Okay, fastest car, cool. But yeah, I think they're going to kind of take a step back and struggle a little bit. So that's kind of where I'm at with Checo, with Red Bull. I think he's going to finish P5 this year. Like I said, I think Mercedes is going to come back with a vengeance, and I think they're going to have a really good year. Who do I think is going to come in P4? This is interesting. I don't think Max is, but you can make an argument for any of the 3 guys who I haven't touched on outside of Max, kind of A, struggling, or B, winning a Constructors. You can see George Russell winning a Constructors. You can see Lewis Hamilton winning a Constructors. You can make the argument that George Russell was probably a little bit better than Lewis Hamilton in the Mercedes last year. So you could say he'll be better this year. I don't know if that's going to be the case. He did win a race. Lewis did not win a race in 2022. I think George Russell is going to finish in P4 in the drivers. I know I said I think Mercedes is going to win. I think it's going to be super tight with this top 4. And I just think George Russell kind of has the least amount of experience in these big moments compared to the rest of the guys. And I think Lewis is just going to give us one more great year and kind of come back with a vengeance. So that kind of leads us to who do I think is going to come in the top 3. We got Charles, Max, and Lewis left. I think Charles is going to finish in 3rd. I think it's going to be similar to Carlos. Kind of similar to his 2022 year. He's just not going to get consistent results. And I don't think they're going to have the success early on, because I don't think Red Bull and Mercedes are going to struggle as much early on as they did in 2022. So I definitely think Charles is going to finish in P3 in the drivers. As we look at him now, he's kind of a decent way back. We're gaining. We're going to go aggressive. We're going to go attack here on the next lap with our tires, because our tire deck is doing good. So, we can do it with Charles. I mean, we'll go aggressive with Carlos. And then we'll deploy ERS with a few laps left. And hopefully we'll be close to Red Bulls. I think we'll give them a good enough shout here coming up. So, yeah, I think Charles is going to finish P3. I think it's going to be very similar to 2022. He's just going to have a few too many DNFs. The Ferrari's going to get him some trouble. There's going to be some bad strategy. I just don't see how Ferrari kind of makes a jump and finishes consistently with Red Bull and with Mercedes in 2023. So what does that leave? That leaves Max and Lewis. Woo, Max and Lewis. Now, based on my Constructors Championship and who I think is going to win, you can kind of see who I think is going to win the drivers. It's just tough to win 3 in a row. It just is. I just have a weird feeling about Mercedes this year. I just, the way Toto was talking towards the end of the season, it's like, we got it figured out. We're going to be okay. Our car was really bad this year, and I think the car is going to be a lot better this year. There's not as many regulation changes. I think they know what they need to do to have a competitive car, and I think Lewis is going to win. I think Lewis is going to get that final drivers championship and give him his 8th. He's arguably the GOAT. I think he's just got one more good year in him. It's just a little too quiet. Like, Lewis is too quiet. Like, I just feel like they're in the lab kind of preparing something. So that's kind of where I'm at with Mercedes this year. Yeah, we will see. We're catching up here. I think we go deploy now and try and get super close and see how that goes. Try and make up some ground here. We're in a little DRS train with our 2 cars, so that's good. But yeah, I think Lewis is gonna win. I think Max is gonna finish second. I think it's gonna be close. Not necessarily 2021 close, but I think it's going to be close, and I think it's going to be a much more competitive year. And like I said, I just have a weird feeling about Mercedes. It would not surprise me if Max won, if Red Bull won the Constructors. I think those two are going to come 1-2 at least. Like I said, I think Mercedes is going to come out on top, but I think those two are going to come 1-2 this year. And then I think Max is going to it's just tough to win 3 in a row. And he kind of had the close one. He kind of had the dominant one in 2022. And they got hit with the cost cap penalties on top of having the least amount of testing times. So I think they're going to struggle. And I think they're going to have some issues, and I think they're going to finish in 2. I think Max is going to finish in P2 in the drivers, and I think, they're going to finish P2 overall. So we're actually getting really close to them. I still got the deploy on. Carlos is in 3rd. We're in DRS zone. So if we can kind of maintain this with 2 laps in the air. Now I'm talking about the gameplay. If you guys haven't checked out F1 Manager, it's super cool. I think I might start doing this where I kind of record a gameplay of F1 2022 Manager. I don't know if a new one's going to be released. I really don't want to spend the money on a new one. I enjoy this. But I think I'm going to do this as a weekly thing after each race, hopefully, when the season gets going. Continue this Ferrari one. Keep it going. Yeah, Charlotte. Got 2 laps left. Just power through here. Come on, my guy. No, we can't change tires. I'm going to go to standard here, though. And then the last lap, we're going to go... well, honestly, we can go push here with the fuel. And hopefully that's enough to overtake. But yeah, like I was saying, I'm new to this YouTube stuff. I'm new to this content creation stuff. I'm going to be making... I've made some videos. I'm going to be making some videos on Hogwarts Legacy. I have a bunch of interest. I'm just going to start making videos and see what happens, see if this sticks, if anyone is watching. And if you're watching this long, super thankful for you consuming this content. I know it's not the best. I know my mic quality is not the best. My editing is not the best. But I'm going to try. I'm going to try and get better. And I kind of like this format of kind of like a podcasty type thing while I'm playing F1 Manager. Last lap, we can kind of go 1 speed here. But yeah, hopefully we can overtake one of the Red Bulls. It's gonna be tight. Our tires are dead. I mean, their tires are dead too. We're pushing on the fuel. We're pushing on the ERS. We're in DRS range. Hopefully we can get at least P2. It's close. It's super close. Carlos is super close. He's going to go for it. That didn't really work out there. Car spun. It wasn't one of the Red Bulls. I think it's going to be a P3, P4, which is disappointing. I don't know why it wanted me to watch the quote if he spun or not. I just think our tires are too dead right now. We gave it a good try, but I don't know if we're going to come through here. I guess this is kind of the DRS zone, so yeah, I think it's going to be P3, P4. It's disappointing, but hey, I'll keep doing these once a week. Tire strategy killed Ferrari, shocking, but I'll try to keep doing these once a week as the season goes on. I'm going to be making some Hogwarts Legacy videos coming up. So hopefully you guys like that. Hopefully people out there watch it. Please like, please subscribe. I'm going to be trying to make more content and see how it goes. So, disappointed to finish P3, P4. My tire strategy let us down in the Ferrari. Maybe I'm not a better team principal than they've had the last few years. But thank you guys so much for watching and for any support you may have. But yeah, as we finish here, I'll keep doing this Ferrari career mode and kind of do like a podcast and kind of give my thoughts on F1 every week. So thank you guys and appreciate the support.